All right, I'm going to call to order the Town of Old Saybrook Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, August 5th, 7 p.m. Town Hall, second floor conference room, 302 Main Street, Old Saybrook. A roll call for this evening is myself, Mark Caldarella, Chair, Jerry Lewis, Vice Chair, John Henry, Secretary, regular commission members, Bob Friedman, and Laura Gray, and alternates this evening are Mike Kelly and Brenda Dyson, who is on Zoom this evening. We also have Chris Costa, our zoning enforcement officer, and Joanne Galley, our clerk. And on Zoom, we have Brenda Dyson, as I mentioned, and there's one other, two, a total of two. And in the audience, we have four. Regular business minutes from our last meeting, which was Monday, July 15th at the first floor conference room. I make a motion to accept the meetings from the July 15th. Seconded by Jerry Lewis. Any discussion, changes, alterations? Excellent job, Joanne. Thank you very much. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much.
That's what you're looking for.
Oh, okay, yeah. No additional correspondence other than what's for this tonight's hearing. So we'll move into public hearings. A, Ortho Saybrook LLC application for special exception use to construct a 23,820 square foot medical office building, 52 Spencer Plain Road, map 25, lot 27, business B4 district. Applicant Provence Land Company LLC, agent Joe Wren. Action, open public hearing, continue or close by September 4th, 2024, or no later than September 8th of 2024. Mr. Wren.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
For a loop meeting out there. Definitely was.
It started on.
First floor count.
Yeah.
The election stuff.
Yeah.
Just
for
the
sure.
beginning.
Yeah.
No awareness. So we have some like found you, which is great. With me is Alan Borghese, who is the owner and president of Borghese Construction, will be the general contractor and constructing the building and site as well, right?
Right.
So as you mentioned, this is a proposed construction of approximately 24,000 square foot medical office building. The site is kind of between the railroad tracks, I-95, and then to the west is Spencer Plain Road. The site is about 6.5 acres, more or less. There are some wetlands on the site to the east, and then there are two pockets along the west side. Senior correspondence, we already have in the wetlands approval. We're working with the health district on that approval. And we also have gone through architectural review board, who gave us a favorable recommendation with a couple of minor adjustments to the building sconces and a couple of the plantings. Those items have been addressed. New items have been submitted to the town, and these plans should match the plans that you have in front of you, because they address those minor things and some minor comments that the town engineer provided, which I'll go through at the end of this. Online too is Scott Hesketh, and Scott is the traffic engineer. And once for the end, and I've got let's talk for 2 minutes about traffic, since that's really our last remaining item. So I already went through the site location. Currently, the site is all wooded. So now at a bigger scale, we have the railroad tracks, the road or Route 166, and then we have I-95 to the north. There's a large area of contiguous wetland to the east, and that goes up to the Lookout Hill. The two pockets of inland wetlands are here and here. When 95 was being built, Spencer Plain was Spencer Plains. It was all flat meadows through here. When the highway came through, they needed to construct the bridge over the highway. So what that meant, to get high enough over the highway, they had to place a lot of fill here on the approach to the bridge. So that fill created the berm, the roadway berm that's there now. It's lower on both sides of the road. The ramp is right almost directly from the proposed entrance. And with that roadway berm, these two pockets of wetland, kind of formed, but they also had to maintain the driveway. There was a little house down here with cattle farm I heard in the history, right around the I-95 era in the 50s and 60s. So the DOT built a driveway down in from the raised road. That driveway is still there today, remnants of it, remnants of the house are down on the side as well. What's important about that is along the state highway frontage and I-95 frontage is all non-access line. So you can't break into that line at all with the driveway. The only break in it is 50 feet right at this entrance. And that's where the DOT had originally built the driveway to access the site. So this driveway can't really be anywhere else because of the wetlands and because of that 50-foot break in the non-access line. And it kind of aligns with the ramp intersection as well. So it's kind of the right location. In order to get the road in there, make it blend with the parking area, we're proposing two kind of symmetrical retaining walls. Those initially were proposed to prevent additional fill within the wetlands. Zoning wise, since the property line, the street line comes well into the property, as you can see with that line there, the front yard setback line then comes, since that's 50 feet, then comes all the way back here. That dash line is labeled accordingly. So your regulations don't allow retaining wall that's 7 feet or higher in a setback. So what we did is we flared these out instead of going straight, we flared them out. And then we lowered the elevation as we were able to flare out, drop the ground elevation on the backside so that we're less than 7 feet in the setback. So it's not structured because it's not taller than 7 feet in the front yard setback. The other thing is, and we're not proposing any signs with this application. We'll be coming back for signage, and most of the reason for that is we're allowed to have a freestanding sign, which wants to be out here by Route 166. And it has to be obviously back from the front yard or from the street line. Since we're bringing up the grade in that area to match, or the shallower driveway to match the state roadway, the new regulations, I believe, is 8 feet from the existing ground. So the top of the sign would essentially be in the ground. Since we're bringing up the grade that much, it has to be above proposed grade. So we technically have to go for a variance for that based on the definition of the height of the sign. So we're not we're indicating where it likely would go, but we're not proposing it because we know that we need other reviews prior to doing that. So the entrance is a boulevard style. So we have the southern one is the in, the northern one is the out of a kind of a striped and a landscaped area with the sign there just to dress up the frontage. Then we get down to the lower grade. Previous application last year, we were raising the site quite a bit higher. The floor elevation of the building is a little below 30. Last year, if you remember that application, we had a large grocery store building and then we had a drive-through restaurant on the north side. Both of those floor elevations were 33. We're proposing one building here and that floor elevation is 29.5. So we have 3.5 feet less fill. We have minimum fill on the site, obviously to control cost, but we do need some fill because in order to get the stormwater system to drain and flow by gravity, it has to be up a certain amount for the depth of the catch basins and then the pitch of the pipe all the way back to the stormwater area. While we're on that subject, we do have just one stormwater basin back here. This stormwater basin controls all the runoff, all the increased runoff from the pavement and the roof area. That all has been approved, reviewed and approved by Jeff Jacobson through the wetlands process. So all of that is previously approved. There are no additional outstanding comments at all from the town engineer, but specifically related to drainage. It handles the water quality volume. And from the chew through the 100-year storm, there are reductions of volume and peak grade runoff. Last year, previous application, the reviewers wanted us to allow a little bit more volume to go into the wetland, just for the benefit of the wetland. But this year, within this watershed, at the end of the watershed, we all know is Chalker Beach. So there's been a lot of sensitivity with the marshes at Chalker Beach. So with that, the reviewers now asked us to tighten that up and get to either zero or a reduction in runoff. So we did our best that we can do to try to get it as equal as possible without having a major reduction or any increase at all. So we did that, and the reviewers are happy with it. When I say the reviewers, it's your town engineer, Jeff Jacobson, and it's also the town wetland consultant, Eric Davison, as well, who reviewed all the plans. So the drainage is collected in the parking lot, a series of catch basins and pipes. It all gets to this point. There's a water quality volume area at the front, and then the basin here. We can look at the grading plan as well. But then there is, if this ever fills up, it can spill off over a riprap area prior to getting into the wetlands. With this site plan, comparing it to the previous one that had two buildings, there are quite a few, I think 40 less parking spaces, so quite a bit less pavement, and there's more buffer area. This entire area was parking in the previous application. That is all preserved as wooded now in that area. And then on the east side, we're able to expand the buffer and the planted area on that side, and then a little bit up in this corner too, because there was an additional building up on the side last time. So we were able to save, I think it was on the order of 3/4 of an acre or more of additional wooded areas with this plan versus the plan last year. The parking meets the requirements. The use is medical office. The prime user will be spine and ortho, and they will be taking at least 50%, maybe as much as 60%, right, of the building. And the other 50 or 40% will be another medical office tenant or user, right? Within the parking area, we have all the required islands. They're all at least 10 feet wide. All the light poles are the maximum height with flush bases and at least 5 feet from the edge of the curb, all the standard town regulation stuff. We do have a dumpster enclosure here in this corner, tucked between the building and the train tracks. That is a solid wood or solid vinyl fence enclosure. There is a detail on the plan for that, and it's kind of obscured kind of from view over in that corner. I'll go to the next sheet. This shows in kind of a soft green, it shows all the areas that will be cleared for construction, but then replanted. So you can see all of the islands and all around the perimeter of the building, all in that areas that have to be cleared for what's being proposed and then replanted. So all of that area will be cleared during construction, but again, replanted and will be green permanently after construction, including the basin. There's the whole basin planting plan. There is a driveway that brings an emergency vehicle all the way around the building, either way in that area in case it's needed. And the building will be sprinkled, right? Sprinkled, correct. It has to be based on its size. So the building will be sprinkled, but there is this 360-degree access road as well. The septic system is in this northeast corner where the best soils were on site. And it makes best sense to put it right in that corner there. So the access road will provide access to the basin around the building and then also to the septic system. We did submit a photometric plan, a lighting plan with some specifications. Everything is 3,000 Kelvin or less, relatively soft lighting. I believe the lighting will be on timers an hour after the close of business, right? They will turn off. And of course, it's all dark skies lighting. One question, there were some decorative sconces across the front of the building, and Architectural Review Board asked about those particular sconces. They're kind of decorative on these pilasters here. And we provided a new spec that showed it's kind of up and down light, but it could be capped on either end or both ends. And the tops will be capped, so there's no light shining up. It will be only shining down. That sconce shining down on the column, not upward. Even though it would be under an overhang, we just didn't want any lighting shining up. So that's what was provided. If anybody needs a copy of that, I did bring an extra one with me. We already went through the landscaping plan. There is a full landscaping plan in there. One comment that ARB had on landscaping where there were some flowering pear trees that have been used for decades, forever and ever on site plan. You see them all over the place, but supposedly certain species of those are now considered invasive.
A whole new
Like
list.
everything else.
Yeah.
So there were autumn cherries that were lining this access road. Those flowering pears changed to the autumn cherry. So there's no, I'm going through the list, which is provided in the upper right corner. There's no invasive plant. That was the first time I've heard of that particular one, but they were changed and the new landscaping plan has that. And the only other comment that ARB had it while we're on planting is there was ground cover proposed around between the sidewalk and the building on these three sides. And they just wanted something more vertical or something evergreen, kind of for texture. So evergreen boxwoods were added, as shown on the updated landscaping plan across there. Other than that, like I said, they provided a favorable recommendation, and those were the comments that they had on the building itself. They did comment on, they liked the building design, they liked the colors chosen. We did bring in physical samples, so they could see that and have this kind of tumbled brick accents in those areas. There was more gray. These accent areas were mostly all gray, and I think the gable ends were blue. And they asked to add more of the blue color to the building. So these little false dormers here, and then these bands across, where ultimately there will be signage, but there's nothing proposed now. Just adding blue, and then on the sides of the building as well, like here in corners, other little accent areas, it just breaks up the monotony of the gray, which we're really good on. Last time we talked about the breaks in the building, and we talked about that at length with Architectural Review Board. And that was another change that was made right on the south side, Alan. There was an additional bump on the railroad side, but nothing along the back, which just faces the wooded wetland. That is a flat wall. We have articulations of windows and banding and so forth, but no bumps in the footprint. Both sides, north and south, and the west elevation all have the proper juts, the 2-foot juts in and out, or more. So they were happy with all of that with the building.
One question, are the wall signs included, just not the freestanding signs?
No, the wall signs are not included. There's no sign proposed at all. This is just showing as like an example where it would go above and the banding. There's no.
So if it's approved, then the signs are not
The
approved.
signs are not
Right.
approved.
Correct, and we're totally fine with that. We know that we have to come back. As far as the logo and the wording, the signage and the size and the lighting, that's all not figured out yet because of the issue with the freestanding sign. So we're just come back once with a sign application for both. If we're successful with that variance for the freestanding sign, we'll come back and discuss that.
Could you just educate us for the conversation you had with ARB regarding the east elevation and the lack of need for articulation?
Yeah, we talked about them specifically, and we go back to the site plan. Out of all 4 sides of the building, into the landscape plan will probably show it the best. This is going to be all tree right up to there. So obviously coming this way on 95, you're never going to see it at all unless you're looking out the back window. Coming in this direction, this is all tree. All through here is all trees. So there's really not much opportunity, if any at all, to see the back of that building, let alone see if there's any articulation in the wall. And even from the train, either way on the train, if you're coming this way, you'll never see it. If you're going in that westerly direction, we do have landscaping in here, but at 80 miles an hour with it canted away from you, we don't think that it's really viewed from any public point at all. This roadway is not for public. There will be signs and, you know, just for authorized access only. Back here, and unless you're a maintenance worker, you're never going to see the back of the building. So they thought that was adequate. For the lighting, let me know if you want to go back to that. I'll just-
No, I just would like to, point out to the commissioners that, just trying to find it here. Anytime it's a,
Side greater than 40 or-
well, yeah, it's 40 feet or more, but when it is not viewed by, abutting, properties, or it's, concealed from the road, articulation is not required. So, because I first looked at that, it was like, uh-oh. But as I went back and did my research, I saw how it was spelled out in the zoning regulations, and just wanted to point that out for everybody in case you had your own concerns.
So, yeah, you're referring to 68.2.4.
Yes.
Facade for A.1,
Right,
with the front wall of the building what would be visible from the street. The whole wall is greater than 80 feet long. And so the regulation requires that articulations in the facade.
A minimum depth of 2 feet for every 30 feet.
The recess in the wall will have a minimum depth of 2 feet for every 30 feet of wall, with a maximum of 40% in length per recess. And so the wall on the northernmost end of the front of the building and the wall on the southernmost end of the front of the building, those presently exceed the 30 feet.
Okay.
go back, yeah.
So another motion there,
That's it. And right.
and on the right. Input on that?
Let's look at the floor plan.
I don't think that's different.
Oh, this doesn't show the bump. There is a bump.
Yeah, this here, this is what he's talking
This
about.
right
this
here.
section. And no question on that.
This is the limit of 30 feet, is that the,
Yeah,
Since the facade is longer than 80, this is supposed to be 30, or each indent is supposed to be 30 or less.
okay, we'll just have to readjust that, and actually readjust it, that, I guess we'll do that for the next meeting. Is that in that basic base of the building, right?
correct.
Yeah, that'd be
But
something.
that could be a condition of approval.
How long is it
That's
now?
wonderful.
I'm sorry, how long is it now?
From here to
Is 30,
52.8,
yeah, 52.8.
and the other one is 41.6. And then, yeah, 29, 20, so all the other.
All the other ones are
And
we're
There's
missing
two
one.
ends, yeah.
I will make that adjustment as a conditional approval if you go forward tonight. Thank you very much for mentioning that.
The ARB to look at it again. Since we're changing.
Well, they were happy.
Probably should, but I mean, the commission could condition it as approval, both ways, that the applicant would modify it and the ARB has an opportunity to review it,
That's what I was thinking.
but rather than pushing it back.
I don't need, you're gonna argue with additional
No, I think so.
articulation.
No.
And
Okay, yeah,
it was a
no,
thought. I
just as long as
didn't-
we're clear, yeah. Yeah,
You don't
okay.
have to do that, but I just,
I think it would be common courtesy to do that.
Yeah, totally fine. We have no problem.
Okay.
They like the materials, the colors, they like it with the additional situation.
Yeah.
I know that they would just appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm sure about that over there.
That's okay.
No worries, I didn't go on that. That we mentioned the lighting, all dark sky compliant, all down lighting. There is a little known provision in the zoning regulations about light trespass and the 100-foot wetland buffers. So clearly with the only access to the site here with wetlands on both sides, there's no way for safety and security that you can't have any light trespass in the 100-foot buffer area. What we did is made sure there was no light trespass directly in the wetlands themselves, but the site, if we go back to the beginning, because of the wetlands on the east, so I'll show you from the wetland all the way around. This is how far 100-foot comes from there, and then on this side, 100-foot comes from there. So all that portion of the site is within the 100-foot buffer area. And just to get safety and security lighting of the access road, of this portion of the parking lot, of this portion of the parking lot, it would be impossible to meet. So we obviously discussed that with wetlands, even though it's a zoning regulation, and they didn't see any issue with that lighting in there, especially since we didn't allow any light trespassing here and decreased it significantly, or if not down to zero on those two lesser quality wetland areas as well.
Now, those are on timers, right? What was the time?
They're on timers, and in the statement of use, we had the time, I think it was
7, yeah.
7.
So you had an hour
So an hour
closing.
after close is good.
8 p.m.
I'm not sure if we put that in the statement of use or not. I'm not sure how the building will function as far as like when the security officer leaves, when the cleaning crew leaves.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe I'm wrong on this. So, wasn't there also a motion sensor? In case somebody comes later.
Yeah, maybe at the building itself, the
Yeah,
building mounted are probably motion. They usually are for security.
You have to have that.
But the higher wattage lighting and the site are generally on timers. And that could, those very well can go off an hour after close or something. And those hours were Monday through Saturday, no hours on Sunday, I think it was. All right, so we went through landscaping, lighting, trash, drainage, parking in the building. So next I want to discuss the sidewalk. So we are kind of on the fringe of a pedestrian node from Route 1 at Spencer Plains Road. To the south, we have the train overpass, and there's very little room to even get by. There's a very narrow shoulder to get by, so pedestrians have a very difficult time. And there are no plans on the books to widen that railroad overpass, so folks really couldn't get to that south end of the sidewalk. Then on the north end, we have the I-95 overpass, and again, it's a very narrow area, and if I were a pedestrian, I wouldn't choose to walk in those areas just because of the traffic in the reduced shoulders and the overpasses over the train tracks and I-95. So what we showed on the plans, only because they were within the 100-foot review area of the wetlands, didn't show them, and then it was required by another board, we would have to go back to wetlands. So because of that, we talked about this with wetlands. We do show sidewalk on either side of the access driveway, but since that slope is, that's if I just kind of draw it. Since the slope is relatively steep coming up to the road, the sidewalk, the area has to be filled for the sidewalk, and fill has to be placed, and then we need a guardrail there in the back. So it's all this additional clearing that we're showing. And within the 100-foot review area of the buffer, and all that fill trying to catch the steep slope back and adding more guardrails. So we feel that it's a sidewalk that would never really be utilized. It's on the fringe of the pedestrian node. Because of these two restrictions on those sides of the roads, it's completely up to the zoning commission. But we feel that it would be useless. There would be a lot of construction to build the sidewalk, the fill and the clearing within the 100 feet of the wetlands, that it just wouldn't be functional or worthwhile. That's our opinion, completely up to the zoning commission, but I just wanted to make those points.
Sure.
So it's approved by wetlands, so
It's approved by wetlands, so
Right.
if it was required by the zoning commission, we can just keep what we have on the plan. I believe we'll get into Jeff Jacobson's comments in a minute. I believe he had some discussions. So,
Just for the commission, under 62.2.1, which, sidewalk, the commission may require the installation of sidewalks or crosswalks along public streets in places deemed proper by the commission for public necessity or safety, or in lieu of construction. The commission may require that adequate space and grading be established for future sidewalks along public streets. How does the applicant feel about the latter of that regulation?
well, the clearing and the construction and the grading is the purpose, the main purpose. We feel that it's not
Right.
worthwhile.
What we don't know is we can't read the future as to what may develop in that area,
Correct?
that it would then become important for pedestrian access.
Well, north of I-95 on the same side of the street, there is one B4 zone construction now, and then you get into
Right.
Buckville Road, and then it's all residential after that. So
Right.
I don't see on the east side of the road, I don't see, other than the electrical contractor's warehouse that has been working on for a while. Other than that building, I don't see any further commercial development out there that anyone would need to access. There are existing residential areas, mostly built out. I don't see any additional residential. It is about 1,100 or so, 11 to 1,200 feet north of Route 1, away from that pedestrian node on the other side of the railroad bridge. I don't remember specifically, but along the frontage of Coles, I don't think there's sidewalks there, right? Along
there's,
Pennsylvania.
the sidewalk
Behind-
stops at, Ulta.
Ultimately.
I
So,
think the thought at the time was what's gonna happen here, but I have a feeling we're gonna have a lot going on the west side of town that things may change, but yeah, 10 years ago, I don't know
Right.
if we really anticipated what may be coming soon.
Right, right.
yeah, I didn't bring them tonight. I did take pictures looking both ways, and there's just, if you drive by there, the restriction at the highway bridge and then at that railroad bridge, it's tough. I've walked it a few times, and it's constantly looking to your side or behind you. Sure, a car's not crossing that white line a little bit. It's
So the
pretty scary.
sidewalk would go inside the guide rail that's currently there, is that
It
correct?
would have to go there, and then we would have to add more guardrail on the other side for pedestrians.
Mhm.
On both sides
Of the
Yeah.
sidewalk?
of the sidewalk?
We're gonna protect the pedestrians on the sidewalk
And
with the existing guardrail.
You don't want them to
Protect
Don't want them to fall off.
fall over.
Yeah.
If they're
Or
biking or
biking.
something. On the backside, so not sure how it would look. It would, again, if it's required, the developer has to do it. We just don't think that it would work out.
What are the commissioners' comments regarding the sidewalks?
Are there any existing sidewalks on that Aloyoso Bridge over 95?
No,
No.
the shoulder.
Then, similar to what we decided with regard to pedestrian node on Schoolhouse Road, where there's only one sidewalk over the railroad bridge. In this case, if there's no sidewalk on the bridge over the highway, it's not likely that there's gonna be one. And there's no point in having a sidewalk go north of the curb cut. As for south of the curb cut, that's different story.
There's no sidewalk on the railroad overpass either.
Well, Max,
Just
on,
the thin shoulder.
what's on the south, but what the railroad borders on the south, right?
Yeah, this is the railroad here. This is the overpass.
There's no sidewalk there either.
Mhm.
No.
And this is gonna be one of those sidewalk deserts where there's no sidewalk.
For now.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, I'm the sidewalk person, so. I mean, I
I
understand.
mean, I guess the question is, would it be more likely for sidewalks to go in on that side of the road versus the other side?
It's the other side, yeah.
We have
The
the same.
storage,
you have-
95,
right.
there's more curb cuts, I think, on that side than this one. You're still gonna have the bridge problem.
Still have the two bridge problems where there's
Yeah,
no
it's two bridges.
sidewalks, yeah.
But if you ever wanted to go to the Y
Yep.
and extend the sidewalks,
Right.
this probably would be the
On
side
on the
to,
west side.
on this side to extend and
Yeah, that
cross
side,
over
yeah.
somewhere.
This side.
No, the other
No, the
side.
other
This side.
side.
I mean, if you were, I don't know, I mean, if I was walking. And granted, you have the 95 ramp, you have the exit from the
Yeah.
storage place, you
Yeah.
kind of got a lot going on. It seems
Right,
like it may be more logical in the future to put them on this side of the road. Even though the bridge,
But then you have the same thing on the other side, the southbound.
you may not be able to have it both sides.
Already got sidewalks, to alter on that
And that's
side.
where it
Yeah,
stops.
up
But
top.
it stops right there.
the concern about not having them has to do with the terrain. From
Yes, yeah, it's a
your
very, very
perspective.
steep slope.
Right.
Go back to the grading plan.
Because what we have seen in recent years is the advancement of sidewalks in areas where they weren't considered, and we still have areas that don't have sidewalks that should. So over by Henny Penny, for example. So it's hard to look past today, but with an eye towards the future, we have to at least discuss it.
Yeah, actually, what I didn't mention before is this slope, the roadway embankment slope is it's the steepest, it's about 2 to 1, it's about as steep as we can go with an earth slope now. So there would have to be a retaining wall built here with a footing to support the fill for the sidewalk, and then you have guardrail on both sides. So it's.
But in the
it's a big construction
sidewalk
project.
plan, I don't think that was identified that there would have to be a wall of footage, from what I remember.
This,
It
the grading
was
plan,
identified,
the grading plan shows a
Yeah.
retaining wall along here with
No,
guardrail.
it did, okay.
so that's part of the issue with the sidewalk plan, the easier
Right,
areas get built quicker.
Right.
And then afterwards, like over by Meineke, we went for the wetlands permitting over there to continue the sidewalks there. So it's, now that we have so much sidewalk, we've kind of left these areas that are more difficult
Mhm,
to address.
mhm.
But this is, I mean, this is a heavy burden on an applicant as well, because if this was flat, they would put the sidewalk in all day long. Because that's much less expensive building this wall that has to be 5 or 6 feet tall with a footing benched into that slope. You have clearing, you have grading, filling, construction, retaining wall, sidewalk.
Right, no,
It's
it's involved.
multiples of the cost. And Alan's been building sites for a very long time, much longer than I have, and he could tell you how expensive that would be all the way through there. And it's not only the expense, it's kind of a unique situation where we have 2 pinch points. And unless someone's expanding the I-95 bridge to put a better pedestrian safe shoulder in there and railroad overpass, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. If someone left this site and got on the sidewalk and then got there, they'd be forced onto that narrow shoulder on that bridge. And that's another
I think you're
situation.
forced there anyway, so
Yeah,
that's.
yeah. But they're walking there.
Yeah, but if there's no sidewalk, then
Yeah,
they're
there's
not,
no sidewalk, you're not gonna do
they're
it.
not walking.
Yeah, I was gonna say something other. A couple of developments I've had in the past. It's interesting, because the state of Connecticut does not want sidewalks, because they don't want to encourage people to walk in those areas. And they're finding when they walk in the areas and they cross places they shouldn't, it's too dangerous. They literally, in Torrington, we built an industrial park, and they put up a sign, no pedestrians allowed. Because it was dangerous for pedestrians, and a desire to protect the pedestrians, they'd rather not have walks.
Right.
And we've seen that now, it's my third occasion for that.
Yeah, that would be trouble for Old Saybrook because all Route 1 is a state highway. And, you know, we have them there on both sides of the street for most of the length. It's just here in those two pinch points, does what I had just mentioned, does the sidewalk encourage pedestrian traffic, where you don't really want to until this connection is made, and that bridge is relatively new. I don't know when a project would be to widen.
I think the likelihood in what's happening now is people are walking from the residential neighborhoods to Big Y and other areas. So I mean, there's always people crossing there, whether, I understand we don't want to encourage them, but it's happening anyway.
Well, certainly with
Yeah.
any potential future development, where Big Y is, or the Benny's Plaza could potentially increase the movement of pedestrians from the north to the south.
What's the,
Given all the other challenges of the property, we understand. Yeah, John?
I'm gonna say, what's the likelihood that, since it's gonna be a medical facility, that people without transportation might take a bus down to the Route 1 intersection and walk over the bridge?
It's fine north though, I don't think they're walking that far.
Yeah.
And the patients aren't walking that far. They're gonna get dropped off at the building.
Well, I guess the thing is, I'm not saying, but if it changes from spine and ortho to
Right.
another type of an office,
Well, the group of doctors that own the development are spine and ortho doctors, so.
I'm saying like
Currently, but
40
it-
years from now, I'm not saying.
Right, if they sold the property and it went to another use, the use could be different.
Plus you had said that there was gonna be another medical office in there has of yet undefined.
Correct, which could be oncology, you know, we don't know. I don't see people walking out on Spencer Plains Road, I wouldn't do it. But if you think otherwise, is there an option where the developer could contribute somewhere else to have a more functional sidewalk somewhere? Is that still an option?
Somewhere other than on the property?
Somewhere other than, well, just a fund, sidewalk fund.
Oh.
As an
That,
alternative, kind of like what we do with open space, right?
Have you seen that before?
I can ask the question. Hold on.
Have you seen that before, Bob? Where the developer would provide funds for a future sidewalk?
Somewhere.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
that's still in the regs.
No, we were asking.
No, I'm asking you if,
No, we took those options out of the regs.
Yeah.
Because it was a case of where do the funds go during the interim? And
yeah,
that was not so much of a zoning function.
right,
Because it wasn't like there was a sidewalk fund that it went to, that it got used. It just went into a black hole for who knows how long.
yeah.
We don't have that any longer.
The other thing that we have to discuss, and Scott Hesketh, the traffic engineer, is online too, is this whole retaining wall, all the fill inside, all of that is done off of this property. That's not on this property, that's in the DOT right away. So does the DOT approve that? We don't, think that an application is going to go into that and provide it to them and see if they would even allow that to work in the right of way. So remember, the property line comes way into this property. Property line is here. It's not even close.
In other places in town, sidewalks that have been installed in the right of way. The same slope problem in the right of way.
That's the issue, but it's not just the sidewalk on a flat piece of land, it's this big retaining wall that's 6 feet high, just to get the sidewalk. That's expense of construction, all the clearing, all of that would be in the DOT right away.
Bob remembers that we eliminated that from the zoning regulations because the money, in essence, would go into a black hole, so to speak.
I just asked the question.
Okay. We can move on to the next one and come back to that once we get some input. That's
Right, it's, yeah, I don't even know how much, but it would be probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a wall in the fill and do it again and build sidewalks. It just seems like lesser money could be used for more sidewalks in a better location.
currently the zoning regulations require it.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what we're wrestling with.
Exactly. And that's
And
why
there is a word in there in the description saying may,
Mhm.
okay, that we have to
Exactly.
dive, but I'd like to be able to get all of the information we can this evening so that commissioners make a informed decision.
Let me grab Jeff Jacobson's letter,
Yeah,
because
here,
we
if you
did
want.
discuss the sidewalks and while we're on topic. Review that.
For the commissioners, it's on page,
Want
2.
me to read it?
And I'll read it for you if you like. Since the project is located within the Spencer Plain Road pedestrian node, the plans include a sidewalk along the frontage of the property. Due to the steep fill embankment located along the entire east side of Spencer Plain Road, a retaining wall is proposed to limit the disturbance within the 100-foot regulated inland wetland review area. General notes number 15 on drawing sheet number 1 indicates that the sidewalk will only be constructed if required by the zoning commission and approved by CT dot. In this regard, the commission should determine if a sidewalk is warranted at this location. Zoning reg section 62.2.1. If the commission determines that a sidewalk is required, then a sidewalk should be provided from the street to the front entrance of the building under section 62.3.1A.1.
Okay, so what he's saying in that comment, that if you do
Do that,
then
you're
we
gonna
have
take a
to
walkwood all the way to the
all
front
that
entrance.
as well. So it's, and I mean, that's just his recommendation, but.
Right.
That just adds more cost. And more, hardship. I mean, again, if it was a flat area already, just like all along Route 1, that's not a problem. Because of this situation, this is the reason why we're having this discussion.
Right.
Otherwise, it would just be on there and we would agree to it and so forth.
Any other comments from commissioners regarding sidewalks or not?
Beyond sidewalks?
We're still on sidewalks.
Still on sidewalks. No, I just, I'm afraid that in this particular location between the railroad and the highway and the slope of the land alongside State Route 166, that sidewalk is not feasible.
Well,
Is there anything that can be done, with like green paint on the shoulder of the road? So people have to walk, or I know there's bikers that go up and down there that might.
The issue is
Keep them
that
safe.
the shoulder is really thin, so no matter what color it is, it's just really, really thin. And then at these pinch points, it's just, you have like a concrete wall on the right side and you're trying to stay in the white line while you're walking through or biking through there. It's just really, really, you hit a little stone with your bike wheel and you're probably into the side of the car. I mean, it's just like this way. So that's the issue. I should have brought those photos tonight looking in both directions. I can provide those to the commission, but it's,
no,
we agree that
I see.
because of this, we agree that it's just,
Okay, any other questions on sidewalks? Okay. Move on, we'll
okay.
come back to that at the end.
So while we're on Jacobson's comment, I think that's brings me right where I want to be anyways. So we'll just go back to this first comment, copy of the A2 survey should be submitted. We did file copies of that for the record. Typical dimensions, we updated the site plan, this latest.
And that's on the
revision.
one that we have now.
Line 4.
Confirmed, right?
Yes. Standard parking spaces, those dimensions were added. We just went through the sidewalk, number 3, number 4, the snow storage areas. Added.
Just to go back there one second.
Yep.
On the, dimensions, in the A2 survey, do you have those, Chris? Because we don't have that. This set is dated June 28th and his letter's dated July 12th.
So with a separate, just the survey map.
That was separate, yeah, but-
Okay, okay, just for the record.
You should have the plan set, now that you that up, should be dated July 18th. I see yours is 28th. I'm not sure what other members had.
June 28th.
So we did submit 9 sets of that with the building plans, with the survey, with all of that information, but it was really just for these minor comments. So the plans are essentially the same. We only edited them for just comments.
And as you go through this, the applicant is in agreement with Jacobson's
Yes.
8 points, I think it is.
Yeah, we submitted
Other
the
than
survey, we added the typical dimensions, just 9 by 18 typical. We talked about the sidewalk, the snow storage areas
Yep.
on the July plans, and I could leave this set with you if you need an additional set. But we added between the tree line and all around the perimeter of the site, we added a gray shade, and we labeled that as the snow storage area. Number 5, the trees in the interior islands, I think they had said 3-inch caliper before, and that was revised to 3.5 inch. The photometric plan, we talked about that before, about the inland wetland buffer. You mentioned that. Number 7, he found a typo regarding a warehouse use in the traffic report. The traffic engineer corrected that. And then number 8 just talks about the DOT approval because it's a state highway. And of course, the widening, the restriping sidewalks, retaining walls and guardrails, all that stuff that DOT would have to approve. It's also inclined to with all that infrastructure right away for the sidewalk. So with that, the last thing I have, and Scott Hesketh is on.
We've got a sidewalk answer. Before we get, sorry, Scott, hi, Scott. So our attorney said we can agree to do a fee in lieu of the sidewalk installation. And it would be, the fee would be gauged on the same amount as it would cost to build it.
So the fee would be equal to the cost of construction. But that
But we
would,
have to clarify that, because is it just the sidewalk? Or does it include that big retaining wall and all the fill and clearing and everything for it?
well, it also would include the sidewalk for the front of the building.
Right.
I would say it would be the offsite. So I mean, if the state or the town built the sidewalk, we'd have to build the retaining walls and bring the fill in.
Anyway.
Right. So that would be something that you would probably want to discuss with the applicant before any decision was made, right?
Yeah, I think so. And we're fine. You have a meeting on August 19th. We're fine. We can go on too, so we can have more sidewalk discussion.
Okay.
Can I re-ask something?
Sure.
You said? I think you said if we give money and move aside,
Well, that was offered, or I thought,
I don't think it's wise for anybody here. I mean, if you're including the retaining wall and everything else, from that point, we might put a wall in there.
My hope was that it would just be the sidewalk.
Oh, just the sidewalk itself.
Some value. I didn't know.
Oh, it's still
Chris
the
just
same
got
as sidewalk.
clarification from the attorney that the cost would have to
That's
be.
right.
so we never really had that offer, so most
So it's-
developers had just come in
Mhm.
and built it, but he said if that was offered, we could accept.
So I think we should hold it open till August 19th, and I think what we would do, just so you have the information, is just do a quick takeoff of the cost. You can see based on that cost of how, how much it would cost the applicant to construct the sidewalk with the retaining wall and grading. Provide that to you, and then I do have those photos of both bridges, and I could share those with you.
You understand, I was there earlier today, driving, I wasn't walking.
Yeah.
But, I understand that. But, that estimate would also have to include the sidewalk to the front entrance of the building,
Mhm.
Yes.
All the way down?
all the way down to the front entrance of the building.
Yeah. I would.
Just for clearance.
Okay, I'm gonna say, I would venture to guess that if we propose a sidewalk, DOT will probably reject it, so you can't go on my property, can't do sidewalk, so I will include the sidewalk cost in the building.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Then
before.
we're widening that wetlands too.
If it was flat, the sidewalk wouldn't be an issue. They allow that in many other parts of town. My concern, I'll talk to the traffic engineer and DOT as well. So we could bring that information to you. It's just the amount of fill,
Mhm.
like how do you even build it? You have to build it from Spencer Plains Road. Can't build it from below. It's all treed, you have to build it from the road, so this all has to be, like a lane has to be shut down. Do the grading, do the tree clearing, do the build the retaining wall, on that slope, so it's a little difficult. We'll develop a section too, so you could see the real steepness and how high the wall would have to be. In there, but it is pointed out on the
If
plan.
we had to run it to the building, we'd have to widen that driveway too.
That's another issue, because if you put it on the side, remember, we slope down from both sides and we try to tighten that up as much as possible for wetlands. So if we add another 5 feet, we have to find that 5 feet somewhere without adding more fill in the wetlands.
Well, if the applicant's willing to continue to collect as much information as would be available to make an informed decision, yes or no, then I think we should take that effort to do that.
You know, get
at
some
this time.
feedback from DOT. The DOT says, no, we have no option.
Right,
Um, It's their property, so we
Okay.
can't force them to.
Okay.
To do anything.
Okay,
Uh,
that sounds good.
all right, John, you can move on.
Did you have a
So-
traffic engineer?
Yeah.
Scott, you just
He
want
might
to
have something to
summarize
say.
your traffic and where we stand with the town's review.
What was the question?
Just provide a summary of the traffic report. And then, just discuss where you are with the town's reviewer. We did receive review comments late last week. Scott has had a chance to look at them, but not respond to them 100%, just because of timing. So just discuss the summary of the traffic and how the site works, Scott, and then your response to those comments, where you are with those.
Certainly. Good evening. For the record, Scott Hesketh, the author of the June 24th traffic report, revised through July 25th, in response to some staff comments. Basically, those staff comments were a couple of typographical errors within the report, and we did modify those and resubmit for the record. As just discussed, we received some review comments from H&H on Friday or Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. And although we've had a chance to look at them, we haven't had a chance to address them yet. So we hope to be able to do that in the next couple of days and get it back in for review. We were asked to take a look at the traffic impacts of this proposed development. To do that, we took a look at the Department of Transportation's counts. The DOT had counts from September 22 and September of 23 in the area. Route 166 has an average daily traffic volume of about 10,400 vehicles, peak hour volumes of 700 and 1,044 in the morning and afternoon peaks. The 95 northbound ramps have an ADT of about 4,300 with peak hour volumes of 327 and 466 during the morning and afternoon peaks. And the ramp also had Saturday counts. They had a Saturday volume of 4,368 and a midday peak volume of 454 vehicles. We used all that data, plus we supplemented that with manual turning movement counts at the intersection of Spencer Plains Road and the ramps during April of 2024 during the morning and afternoon peak hours. We used all of that data to determine the background traffic volumes. We increased the observed traffic volumes 2% per year through a design year of 2025, and that's what's presented in our report. In terms of the site-generated traffic, we use the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, trip generation report. It's a standard reference which allows engineers to generate trip generation estimates for proposed developments based on counts conducted at existing uses throughout the country. The proposed medical office building is projected to generate about 916 trips on a daily basis, half entering and half exiting the site. We're looking at a morning peak hour of 74 trips and an afternoon peak hour of 94 trips based on the ITE data. Based on the observed directional distribution of traffic out in the area, we projected about 30% of the traffic will arrive and depart from the north
along Route 166, about 45% to and from the south toward Route 1, and about 25% to the northbound ramps across the driveway intersection. We conducted capacity analysis calculations based on the background and combined traffic volume conditions. The analysis indicates that we've got acceptable levels of service under the combined traffic volume conditions. The site driveway will experience some delays during the afternoon peak hour. The current calculations show a level of service F for that approach with about 128 seconds of delay. Not unheard of for an unsignalized intersection to a state highway, especially when we're across the street from an interstate highway ramp. We did look at the warrants for traffic signalization. It's our opinion that the warrants are not satisfied at this location, so signalization would not be an appropriate means of control. Therefore, the site driveway is going to operate under stop sign control. In order to accommodate left turn traffic into the site development, we propose to restripe Route 166 to provide a left turn lane in the southbound direction, and that would be opposite an existing northbound left turn lane into the I-95 ramps. We prepared those drawings, and I believe that's shown on the plan set in front of you this evening. We hope we can do it with just striping. It may need a little bit of widening, and if we're redoing some curbing in the area, we'll take care of that when we go through that process. Again, Route 166 is under the purview of the DOT, so any improvements, either restriping or widening, would have to be approved by that agency. Site driveway has about 400 feet of intersection site distance in both directions, which is in excess of the 390 feet required for the posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour. Again, we'll have to present that to the DOT and hope that and get their approval on that as well. That's a summary of the report. Again, we did receive comments from H&H. I believe we'll be able to address all of those comments. Some of them were just reworking some of the data using some different figures. They asked us to review Saturday peak hour traffic, being a medical office building. I did not include that in the initial report. They did ask us to review that, so we will add that information as well. And they wanted us to provide them with the data files which we were using for analysis. We'll be happy to do that. And I expect that I'll be able to complete my response and submit that to them by the end of the week. If there's any specific questions related to traffic, be happy to undertake them at this time.
I got a question, Scott. Maybe I didn't understand you. How do you get from the 95 north exit ramp across the street to the proposed medical facility?
Right now, the ramp's got a 2-lane approach, which is a left turn and a right turn. I expect that we'll restripe the ramp to have a shared left through lane and an exclusive right turn lane. The majority of the traffic coming off that ramp does make a right-hand turn going toward Route 1, so that seems to be the appropriate way to restripe that approach.
So how do you get across the traffic into the medical facility if you're going straight across?
You're just going to go straight across. That's correct.
You're gonna have to wait for the opportunity for clear traffic to go straight across.
Obviously, yeah, the ramp is operating under stop sign control as well. The analysis indicates that there's sufficient gaps in the traffic stream to allow the volume of traffic that we're projecting to come across the intersection to do so.
You need a spine doctor after that.
Huh?
You'll need a spine doctor after that. Jeez.
Any other questions for Scott? No? Any other questions on traffic at all? If we could just go, you have it up there right now. The red lines that you have on there indicate fire apparatus access.
Yes.
That's right.
That for I would imagine this is getting referred to the fire marshal. We have no comments, from the fire marshal yet.
Right.
But yes, we did do a turn analysis all the way to and around the site, and that's what that represents.
Okay. And in the, preliminary from H&H, last point indicated that, the gravel access in the back should be restricted to emergency and not open. Is that something that applicant would be agreeable
So
to?
we talked about that internally, and we agreed that a gate is not appropriate, that it would be signed to authorize access only. There's no purpose for public to go back there at all. If it's signed appropriately on both ends, that would be fine.
And it's sprinklered too, right? So
What's that?
sprinklered too, right? For the,
Building.
The building is
Yeah,
sprinklered, yes.
yeah. Yes.
So actually, about putting up a gate, my problem is, from the town's point of view, the gate after 10 years really does not look attractive. This is not a driveway that people should access, and Joe suggested just putting signage up and say no access allowed. I will put up a gate. I do not think it's in the town's best interest, but you can make a decision there.
It also turns into gravel too, so, and there's no parking back there, so there's really no purpose unless there's, a delivery or a maintenance person that has to get to the
Right.
septic system or to the back of the building or even to the detention basin, but public just,
Well, as you
way off.
provide answers to these points, that would be included.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And we can
Yeah,
review it at the next.
They just left it as a question. They-
Right.
Gated or open.
Right, and it's recommended that it is only open for emergency vehicles. Signage, there's a way. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, if it was signed, then it's just always open for emergency buildings.
Right.
Always, without worrying about the.
I got just a general question.
Yeah.
Going back, how tall is the building?
You know
33,
offhand?
I think I saw it on there, it's
It is on those
33,
Sections, there should be.
33, just under 34 feet if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
that's what it says on the table. And I looked on the architectural, all I saw was 26. So I just wonder what
It's definitely
the,
lower than 35. It's just a one-story building.
yep. Maybe I just couldn't find it.
Oh, it's 33 point, that has to be measured, it's like the sign, that will be measured with this number. We're filling this up, so it's 33.8 from the existing grade, we're filling around the whole building, so the exposed height is what shows on those,
26.4?
yes. 26, so it's 8 to 9 feet lower than what's max. No second floor at all.
One question on the traffic, if you want, on the, is there a weekly count that includes all 7 days? Or is there a weekly count only Monday through Saturday, since the statement of use says it will not be open on Sunday?
Are you asking about the DOT counts?
No, I'm just basically I'm asking if your weekly count is spread over 7 days, when one of the 7 days it will not be open.
I think, what I reported was that we're expecting 916 trips daily, Monday through Friday.
Well, it's also open on Saturday, according to the statement of use.
I did not project it. I mean, I don't believe I have a daily Saturday volume projection in the existing report. Typically for office buildings, we don't do that because although they may be open, they seldom have lots of traffic. But I will include that in the response letter before the end of the week.
Thank you.
just,
You done with your presentation?
Statement of use also mentioned the specific areas for snow storage. Are those shown on the plans?
Yeah.
That was one of Jeff Jacobson's comments, as I mentioned
Jeff
earlier.
comment.
Yeah, the latest site plan shows a light gray dotted patch around the perimeter, all the way around the perimeter of the site between the tree line and the parking.
And we got the typical dimension of parking space in there according to Jeff's.
Yep, all his comments have been satisfied with the latest set, yes.
With regard to parking spaces along the front of the building, do all of the spaces have wheel stops or only the handicap spaces?
The handicap spaces have, wheel stops and then bollards because
What about
those,
the rest of the spaces?
no, they have a curb. They have a concrete sidewalk with a curb. The monolithic curb.
That's,
6 inch.
we have on our, just so happens we have in our agenda discussion whether or not there should be at least wheel stops, if not bollards,
Mhm.
along the front of the building where parking is perpendicular to the building and close.
Mhm.
We have a number of examples in Old Saybrook of people creating unintentional drive-throughs.
Yes.
there.
Yes, do it.
So if you're.
Yeah, the estuary store.
Yeah, in my experience, the 6 inch concrete curb has always been adequate, for a car to get up on there with the significant acceleration. And damage to the vehicle. The curb stops are wonderful for what they do. They're terrible for plowing. You can't get that space between curb stop and the sidewalk. And then they're trip hazards too. So when you're walking toward the sidewalk, especially in lower light conditions, you're expecting the sidewalk and then the curb stop is there first. So we use them sparsely. They have to be here because the handicap access aisles have to be flush with the sidewalk. So we're flush there. We don't have that 6 inch curb.
As long as the edge of your sidewalk is not a launching ramp for a vehicle, then
Right.
the sidewalk would function as a wheel stop.
Yeah, we also have, where it's flush there, we have the signs with bollards, the handicap signs with bollards in addition to the wheel stop. You don't want the bollards to be hit all the time, but if they launch off the wheel stop, it's still the bollard. So we have a lot of protection right at the entrance, right through there, and then we have the 6 inch curb on all the other sides as well, with I believe it's a 5 foot wide sidewalk.
There's a comment on the elevation drawings, I think it was, that the windows would be subject to change by the desires of the tenant in the future. It doesn't work that way. If this were to be approved by this commission, the approval would be for the windows as shown. And if then a tenant wishes to have different windows, you would have to come back for a modification of the previously approved site plan.
And that's totally fine. That's more Alan's department that came up with this
The
building.
tenant
design.
doesn't get to change the regulation.
Yeah, I don't think that the owner has basically reviewed and approved this. I don't think they would want half the building with the windows they chose and half the building with different windows. The town wouldn't want that either, but any comment on that, Alan?
Yeah, I do have a comment. And that was a very valid question. I've never run into it where my answer is there is a possibility that a tenant will want to change window
Well,
location
then
because of the
there's
wall.
an opportunity at that time to come back for a
So
modification.
now that I know they have to come back, and to be very candid with this, it's unusual to ask somebody to come back, but it's okay. Now that I know they have to come back, I will let them know that that is a requirement. And I understand where you're coming from. I have one immediately, right off the bat, I thought about, we're trying to build a utility room and with electrical cabinets and that sort of thing. The windows are really, let's say, not logical. What I'll probably do is I'll probably put a black glass in those windows. So from the outside, the appearance is windows are there, but on the inside, the windows can't be there. But I appreciate your explanation. That was the first time I've ever seen that, but I will take care of that.
So in general, anything that changes on the building after the approval, Alan, would have to come back before the board.
Yeah,
just in general.
thank you.
So black glass on this building?
No, I think he was just talking
Oh,
about a
okay.
utility building that is working on.
The black glass that you were referring to would be on this building, potentially
Well, potentially on the rear.
on the rear
Yeah, let me show you the elevation thing about
The rear element.
rear
the
elevation.
rear elevation here. You have the electrical panels on that side and also electrical panels on this side. So I may have to do something with that because I have to have the electrical panels. There's no question on the outside wall, sprinkler tree, that sort of thing. And I could leave it exposed to the outside windows. I'm not sure you want that. And we have not gone that far in the layout or even the tenant commission,
Mhm.
but I will come back.
So this, the window would still be there, right? It's just blacked out, so you can't see the
That's what I'd like to
utility equipment on the
suggest, yeah.
inside.
And they call it spandrel glass, which is a glass, it looks like the lights are off in the building, but it looks like glass. It's not some of these things I've seen on CBS's that they put a white infill. I don't like at all.
So it's not a painted black glass?
It's not a mirror, right?
I think that the thought was CVS, when our CVS talking about it, there was some of the windows are
Yeah.
false windows with the lights.
It looks terrible.
But then they put the plastic film that's a zoning violation over it, so now the plastic hearts light up, that's on the sign list too.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it. So what would happen is the store would be shut and someone would forget to shut the lights, the false lights, so you'd have two random lights. We abandoned that idea after,
Yeah,
it's a great idea in 2003.
it wasn't implemented very well. Anything else, Bob?
Yeah, somewhere along the lines, I read that there were no signs detailed for this application. And under 51.6.4.B2C1 and 51.64B2F, signs are supposed to be part of the application. Location, design, and height of all existing and proposed buildings, signs, fences, and walls is in the regs. And on the F part, it says signs and lighting, location, size, height, orientation, and plans of all existing and proposed signs and outdoor lighting. So signs are supposed to be part of the application.
Yeah, we
You
have,
don't have to put the words on the signs. Size, height, location, orientation are supposed to be in the application.
yeah, we have a kind of a unique thing on this that we detailed before. Because for this front sign, in order to be where it is, we need a variance. So.
And where on the building.
So maybe for the building signs, you could put the area on the building and then go to architecture and use the word after when it's done. So the front sign, the freestanding sign, because of the fill, the top of the sign would be in the ground.
Understood.
So they're going to ZBA for that,
But the location.
is on there in
Right,
case.
Location.
The location's there, but there's no location on the building of signs.
Well, we have this location as a placeholder.
So maybe you could just
So you
add
could
some
do-
dimensions
if you-
and-
Yeah. Are those the only two potential on the building you're doing?
Whoever the tenant is,
Yeah.
would probably do another one in the banding similar.
So if you can update that to show the placeholder
And then just
content, you know, I don't have to worry about
approximate
that.
signage, as far as the area, we have all that facade of the building, it's not gonna be anywhere close to the percentage.
Right.
Even if we did that whole band, it's probably not. We didn't want to put too much detail because we weren't proposing anything, because then we get into lighting and we get into sign materials and all that. That just wasn't there yet. So because of the ZBA need for that front sign, we said we'll come back with all the signs in this particular case.
So just quickly, housekeeping, referrals were sent July 1st. We've heard back from our traffic engineer, the building official, our town engineer. We have not heard from the fire marshal or the fire chief or the police chief. We did hear from the architect.
Okay.
But it's been over a month.
But, okay. Since this is a public meeting, is there anyone online or in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this application? Speak now or raise your hand if you're online. There's no one in the room, and I don't see any hands raised, correct?
It's only Brenda and
Right,
Scott.
okay. All right, so, at this point, I'd make a motion to continue to our next regularly scheduled, zoning meeting on Monday, August 19th at 7 PM. Town Hall first floor conference room for the Ortho Saybrook LLC application for special exception use,
What date did you say?
April 19th.
August.
August, sorry, August 19th. Thank you. To Monday, August 19th, 2024. There's seconded by Jerry Lewis. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? See you August 19th.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Nope.
Moving on, we have discussions. A, proposed text amendment to allow for electronic message signs for places of worship in the Residence A zoning district. Applicant Emmanuel Baptist Church, agents Pastor Matthew Calicano, did I pronounce that right? Calciano and Philip Shaler of Signs and Graphics. Action, discuss proposal, and provide guidance. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you.
Floor is yours. Yeah, sure.
There, over here.
Right there's fine.
My name is Philip Schaller with Signs and Graphics out of Deep River, and I appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion to see if there's a possibility of a regulation change for the submitted petition that we got. I think everybody got one of these.
Yes.
So if I can just kind of read it together and then we can start a discussion.
Certainly. Please do.
Thank you. So petition to amend the old Saybrook zoning regulation to permit places of worship electronic message signs in the resident A zoning district. The applicant is the church and I'm the agent, Philip Scheller. Proposed new section 9 definition sign, places of worship electronic message sign. Any sign located on property owned by a place of worship that consists of patterns of illumination, forms, words, symbols, and other messages that are altered more than one time per day. Proposed new section 24.2.3 to permit places of worship electronic signs and to add municipal electronic signs allowed but not listed in residence A zoning district. Section 24.2.3 municipal electronic signs and places of worship electronic signs. Proposed amendment of section 63 signs. D, places of worship electronic message sign, 1 per lot. On any lot located in the residence district, excluding M1, SP-1, and SP-3 districts, a freestanding sign with electronic letters illuminated by a non-flashing internal source of artificial light. Especially the connection that occupies a gross area of 5,000 square foot or more. Number 1, area 32 square foot max. Number 2, the height 8 foot max. Number 3, 8 foot max. Support structure height 6 foot max. Support structure will be surrounded with landscaping materials and plantings that will not obstruct the sign face when plants have grown to maturity. Plantings and landscaping will be protected by a stone border, curb, edging, or base, or internal illuminations permitted.
We were given conceptual image of what you're proposing.
Yes.
Is that still what you're thinking, or has there been any modifications to that?
Well, this is what's under discussion, so this is what we're thinking at the moment. Do you all have copies of this?
We were provided copies, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So just a little background, I don't know if it
Please.
will help you. Phil came in with the concept for the sign, the electronic sign for the church, which is not permitted. So what they've done is they've took the text from what we use for an electronic municipal sign, which 2 of them had gotten variances, and the other 3, I think, that would be allowed would potentially be for schools. And what they've done is they've made some modifications, kind of catering to what they're looking to do. So it would still remain 1 per lot, like the municipal sign. Instead of 40 square feet, which is the sign for the municipal, it would go to 32 square feet to match their proposed design. the 8 feet and the language with the support structure, the 6 feet and so forth would be the same as a municipal sign. But the one thing with the new definition is that currently the town signs can change. I think it's every 5 minutes. This would only be once per day.
That's not what it says. It says. Where is that?
And the top line, the definition, Bob. The
Oh,
top
yeah.
one. So what
Which are altered more than one time per day. The side of the high school is altered more. than-
it's supposed to say not more than one time.
Not more.
Oh, not more.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
my-
I knew it didn't.
So
That's me.
when they came in, the closest sign we have to that regulation is the municipal signs.
Scientist. and-
So the thought was, so they wanted to do it once a week, and I said, well, what happens if you want to say Sunday school canceled today? So this is the proposal to allow churches to have the sign, so it would only change once a day. Instead of 40 square feet, it would be reduced to 32. And it would be allowed in the A
I
district.
appreciate the restraint. However, in real world experience, the high school is, which has an a municipal.
They know all about it. I talked to them.
Was originally limited and they exceeded the limit, and we modified the regs and they exceeded the limit. Because somehow or other, 144 signs a day was not enough. So I have difficulty believing that anybody can exert the restraint that would restrict it to just one per day. But
Well,
that's
God
just-
is watching
but
this
that's
guy
just
though.
me.
This is- but so this is more of a static display than what the gentleman is, it's not try to, like the librarian wants to put something in, and then the athletic director wants something, and then that what kind of happens in those cases. This is more of a static display. And the other thing too, I'm not sure of those displays, but the proposed electronics display we're looking at, it also has a photo cell, so it dims with the ambient light. So I'm not sure if that was ever a problem with the other signs in town, entering town, but this actually dims, so so at night, it's like really 40% of what it output it really is versus during the day when the sun is out, it needs to be stronger. So as a photo cell, and I think if we get that far, that all should be in the regs too. If any of the other places of worship put one in, it should have a photo cell and a regulation of that.
Do you propose this to be on 24 hours a day?
No, what you were thinking was around 9 o'clock, it's dead and done. Morning time, 7 o'clock.
So 7 to 9 is what the concept is at this point? Which is
In the morning,
7 AM to 9 at night.
9 PM.
Yes, yeah. And it would be visible from both sides,
Double face.
one side, not angled.
No, sir.
Okay.
Perpendicular to the road.
Has there been any consideration beyond to a sign that's less than 32 square feet? Could you manage something?
What happens there is, if the display gets too small, then the message in reading doesn't work well. So if the display ends up taking more than the sign, then where the actual,
I'm just gonna borrow it.
oh, sure. Then the actual sign of who the sign's for gets really small. The church still wants to advertise their name or any place of worship.
So this one is roughly 8 by 4, 32 square feet, right?
Yes, sir.
Roughly.
Yeah.
So a 6 by 3 would be too constrictive
It's,
for message delivery?
so for our next discussion, then I could come with different sizes that maybe could work.
Mhm.
Because it is a display. You start to shrink that down, then the message gets really small and kind of loses its purpose.
And the message being displayed would be verbiage only, or verbiage and pictures, or?
Well, it could be an image, but no rotating video, just a static image.
So no video playing of,
No.
for instance, service or something. Just so we have an idea of what what kinds of.
We got this, let me get a really picky thing out of the way first.
Yeah.
It says, this is to modify. Anyway, the section that we have for signs. It says here, proposed amendment to section 63 signs. Signs are in section,
64.
not 63. What is it?
64, it's a typo.
Or,
Darn, I'm so close.
I knew that. It didn't sound right.
I know how you feel.
And in section 51.5, part 8, it describes the site plan objectives. And the reason that we are where we are today with regard to internally illuminated and/or illuminated signs, period, not being allowed in residential districts. 51.5. 51.5.8, lighting. That glare from the installation of outdoor lighting and illuminated signs is properly shielded from the view of adjacent property and public events, improving quality of life by maintaining a minimum illuminance intensity appropriate with the conforming uses in the district. And then in section 64.5.2, that's where it says internally illuminated signs are not permitted in the residential district. And I think there's also in section 68.1.5, the outdoor illumination, which came up in the earlier application this evening about too many foot candles at the wetlands boundary. In a residential area, the maximum foot candles at the edge of the property should be 1/10 of a foot candle. And along with my question about whether or not an electronic message sign could be dark sky compliant, how could an electronic message sign have less than 1/10 of a foot candle measured at the property line?
So you're right about that, but we're 0.3, because they actually have a international federal code on that. And the recommended brightness level is 0.3. We're not 0.1. I agree with that,
Right.
but it's not, you know.
0.3 at the property line or 0.3 at the sign?
So there is a way to measure that, and it's not right at the sign. It's where a car or someone out in the street would see it. So it's that.
So it's outside the
There's a
property line.
distance, yeah, and I have a chart here of how to read all that distance that I could pull up, but it's here, actually, it's right here. And it goes by the square footage of what the sign is. So the message center itself, the whole sign is 32 square feet, but the message center isn't. And this, I kind of did up, it gives you an idea what the sign looks like at night, where the top section of manual is only backlit. So it's just the message center at that 0.3 ambient measured at that distance. And it can be regulated with that photo cell and this system that we use. And it's unfortunate, like the commercial was like right there. I'm sure you know the site, but you know, it's the next building is a commercial.
But I guess the one thing is because it's an overall change, it would impact
True.
all of the overall districts. So
True.
that's, I think, something the
Right.
commission needs to think about is the location of all the other churches in the residence, a district of other places of
How many
worship.
are there?
Many.
Do you happen to know?
There's many. More than,
Well,
more than,
I mean-
doesn't matter, but.
Well, actually,
7, probably.
we had we have two churches with grace.
Praise, congregational, Catholic,
Well, St. John's, it wouldn't apply because it's in the B1.
Oh, okay.
The church on Great Hammond,
Saybrook community.
Saybrook Community,
Lutheran Church. as well.
probably about 7, roughly,
plus we have a church in the 900 building too.
Right.
Right now that.
Right
needs a
now, right.
permit, But
And then,
just, I mean, it could happen in the shopping center as well.
But would that place be 5,000 square feet? Because isn't that part of some of the restrictions? 1 and 900. They wouldn't be,
That's what these.
Yeah, we're
to
just,
consider.
yeah,
your property or the property in question also borders Route 1, is that correct? So your proposed site location for the sign would be where?
Would be on hold.
Old Post Road in front of the entrance to the.
Yes.
to
or-
the-
or there's a
Current sign now.
Yeah.
Why do you want this sign?
Well, you know, it kind of beats that old place, that old message thing where you put the tracks in and then you put the letters up and then the kids go and play with it and they make different words that aren't nice words and then it gets dirty and it's, plus it also could be used for a public use. I mean, the town, if they had an Amber Alert or something alert like that, it's just, you know, it's easier to get messages across.
The primary for me is service times. So we
So
have,
you'd speak up a little bit.
we have 4 or 5 service times on our current sign. 2 of them we don't even have. We've had people come in and at times that we don't even have service anymore. We have summer hour services where we alter our times. A word of welcome, invitation for the week is what's primarily going to be up there. Labor Day, we have kind of an invite a friend, special day.
It's more versatile.
Say that again, sir?
It's more versatile.
Yes, correct, right. Weather, we have to cancel a service.
So would it also be necessary to define what a place of worship is? Because anyone could declare their property a place of worship and apply to put up an electronic message sign.
That's a good point.
And then with regard to zoning as regulating land uses, if a particular property qualifies to have an electronic message sign, once that sign is installed, the sign is installed and it stays there. And that unless the property owner officially announces that they abandon the use of that sign and they take it down, then the next property owner or user could continue to use the electronic message sign forever.
So I think
We're not suggesting
Bob's,
that any place of worship might come and go, but if there was one that had an electronic sign and it moved somewhere else, then whoever moves in there gets to use the sign.
So it's a change of use, then they can't.
so there was a church that converted to a residence.
Right.
So that church, the residents would end up being able to keep the electronic sign. I think that's the concern.
But wouldn't that be a change of use though? And then,
I'm
Well, it
talking
would be,
about
but without a
the Christian
definition.
Science
the
reading
Christian Science
allowed.
reading room.
oh, yeah,
At the corner of, what's that, Sheffield Street?
yeah,
No,
and Old Post Road.
It's used to
yeah,
use.
yeah, the one that goes.
I guess that's a good question as
question
far
is-
as non-conformity.
Is can it remain used to use? Or is it eliminated if the property is sold or vacated?
That's the difficulty is that once the entity, the sign is approved on the property, the change of the use doesn't impact what's already been established. It may become non-conforming, but it's previously approved non-conforming, and it doesn't go away. The municipal sign, it's a little tricky, but it works because it's less likely that a municipal property would turn over to someone else. And if the municipality were aware, and that's our job to make them aware, that if they were turning over a property with an electronic sign, that they officially abandon the use of the sign and take it out before the property changed. then it couldn't happen.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Think about that.
How do we fix that?
And one more thing,
Those
now,
are things for you to address in your regulation.
one more thing, the particular property where the Emmanuel Baptist Church is located is in the Residence A district. And yet the property extends all the way to Route 1. And yet that end of the property is wetlands. And there's somewhere in the regs, I'd have to kind of look again, but you cannot put a sign in the wetlands. I mean, you can't put it in there at all, never mind the spillage of light into the wetlands. But since that part of the property along Route 1 is all wetlands, you can't even think about putting an electronic sign on the Route 1 side.
I don't think they're.
They're not
proposing.
proposing that, right, but you're
It's
correct.
on the map, it would look like.
I think it would
oh,
be
FYI.
confusing, yeah.
I think that's all I came up with.
That's not bad.
All right,
It's not bad. It's a good discussion.
Few things to think about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
okay,
appreciate it.
and any clarifications you may need, Chris is available. to Answer that.
I feel bad for Chris. Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much.
thank you very much,
Appreciate it.
nice meeting you. All right, continuing to discussions to B, Sam's Food Store discussed preparation of deli sandwiches, grinders at 685 Boston Post Road, map 36, lot 102, business B2 district, applicant, Mr. Batul. Is the applicant
So
here?
I don't, have you heard back from so I think the applicant may not be aware. We emailed the applicant, but it was kind of a last minute agenda
Okay.
item. So I received this application, after going into the Sam's Food doors.
Good night.
Good night, thank
And I
you.
know,
And they placed in there, and there's a little bit of a floor plan and an area with, kind of deli style counters with prep station.
Mhm.
I don't know, Bob, if you saw that.
You have that?
yeah.
It's in our podcast.
Yeah, I know.
So
Find stuff to keep track of.
they went to the health district. Apparently they thought they were all set. I wish they could have been here to give you a better summary than my summary. So at the health district, they got an approval to set up for food grinders with a 3-compartment sink, hand washing. They want to make the grinders in the convenience store. It was approved as takeout with 1 food employee, 1 gas station employee with no bathrooms. It does not appear that there's any seating. So Sam's Food right now is, just so that you know too, because we did have the whole vacuum situation. Following the vacuum situation, the gentleman who owned the store sold it to these folks. And he left them the disconnected vacuum outside with the air pump. So that's why that's still there. I thought that might come up. So Sam's is typically, it's a chain retail that goes along with a gas station, candy retail items like any other typical convenience store. But the new owners, they plan to make this fresh food area so that they could make grinders and salads, cookies, ice cream, shakes, only takeout, no frying or cooking. So the way that the counters are kind of laid out, it's not as though it's a grab and go. So typically this commission's always said, well, if you go in and you grab it, or you pick the hot dog off of the little hot dog rotator, then it's more of a grab and go. But in this circumstance, someone would have to give you your food at a counter, and obviously making grinders would entail someone making.
There's a table in there. There's a table and chairs in there. I think it's for people to scratch their tickets, but
Well, it's
It's not,
No,
Not right now, there isn't.
Not right now.
Have you been in there recently?
Well, not real recently, no.
Okay. So I don't believe that the table and chair is still there. They've actually, this drawing is already instituted in the store. It's already set up.
Oh, so it's changed.
It's changed. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the table and I've even seen it in liquor stores as well, and convenience stores when when the lottery introduced Keno and they put the screens, I think it was for people to sit at the table and watch the Keno
Right.
game. So I don't think that has anything to do with the food service. As far as I know, there's no tables proposed. But the question is, is this retail? When someone makes your
Yeah.
sandwich for you and it's not grab and go, or is this a change to the permit? I understand they're new owners, they're trying
Mhm.
to go through, but what makes this different than having a chain where someone makes your sandwich in a gas or not, what I mean? Is it the same? Is there,
I mean, you have to walk up and order it, right? And they make it.
that's what it appears. I was hoping that they would be there tonight,
In-
but I don't think it was
in a
kind of
narrow-
last
In a
minute.
narrow field view, it's just additional retail. But it's food.
Right.
And so the question is, are they in compliance with their present dumpster use? Are there
a refrigerator?
dumpsters on site? Are there dumpsters screened? They will be generating more waste, more garbage. Let's just say refuse by having some foods that maybe didn't sell.
So,
And if that food's gonna go outdoors, then it's more important that the dumpsters be sealed, closed and then closed in order to prevent animals, mice, whatever, from getting in there. So that's one question. You have to make sure that that works. And the other one has to do with, no seats anywhere, inside, outside. That requires additional parking and they don't have that.
So,
No benches, no seats anywhere.
But
so I want to set up for food grinders, so I want to add 3 compartment sink, hand wash sink, storage. So is there a refrigerator?
there's gotta be.
Yeah.
So when they're putting the sinks in there, it's a Brad, it's a health.
I know
So you
that
have the
is,
hand
yes.
washing and the
That I
refrigeration.
agree.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're getting into, we've had circumstances where someone has had Joe's Sandwich Shop go to a convenience store and they load up a cooler and people go in and they take their turkey
Yeah.
sandwich and go on their way. But what's the fine line here that they're becoming more of a restaurant takeout? I mean, when you look at, Dunkin' Donuts, we kind of consider as food prep and restaurant takeout. A Jersey Mike's or a Subway has been restaurant takeout. And
Okay.
the other thing, kind of going back to the vacuum discussion, if this is very successful, is there adequate parking for it? But is
there's
it
that.
retail? Like we talked about, the Polish retail store where they have Polish food that's more of a grab and go. Where are we with this? Because I don't really know, like, we're kind of hitting these breaking points of
We're
what.
talking about salads and shakes. So
Ice cream.
Ice
It's a pretty
cream, grinders.
substantial area in the store. It's not like it's,
But there's 1 food employee, 1 gas station employee.
a gas station, is you still selling lotto tickets?
I hope the gas station
Yeah.
employee
And one-
isn't working.
The way I interpret this and from being in the location is they have one behind the counter now handling all the convenience store.
Yeah.
And the gasoline, okay? Although the gasoline is owned by Gulf, I think at this point, it's not part of the store. And then they would have one employee to, if you walk up and say, give me a, so-and-so grinder with all this on it, they would make it for you.
And what about the person that is standing in line and just wants to buy a pack of cigarettes and?
I'm seeing that there's two entry points.
Oh,
Now,
there's
whether or
two.
not, what we don't know because they're not here is, will they be checking you out at the point of order of a grinder or food? Or do you then take it over there, which may not matter. But
Well,
they're
if you're making
looking, they're
my
looking
sandwiches.
at number of customers, 10 to 12 on peak hours based on their thing, and 5 to 6, and their hours are 6 to 10 PM, 6 AM to 10 PM.
If you
So-
look at the plan,
Mhm.
they have a 14-foot long counter, or missing some dimensions.
Yeah, the last page, yeah.
Then it doesn't really say how wide the counter is. It's probably 36 inches, which is 3 feet.
Yeah.
6 feet for the prep station, so
yeah.
that's 9. Probably, so you're looking at 12. So you're really looking at a 14 by 12 area. At a minimum, so it's about 168 square feet.
Right.
So it's not a little,
No, it's not small. Is it a restaurant?
Yes, I looked it up.
Oh, it's a restaurant?
We
then?
No, I'm asking the
We
question.
have 1, 2, 3, 4 kinds of restaurants.
Right.
Restaurant takeout, the indoor retail sale of food to the general public, where a significant portion of the consumption takes place or is designed to take place outside the confines of the building occupied by such use. Takeout restaurants will have limited or no seating. Food will be picked up within the confines of the building or walk-up window and will not have an accessory drive-through window. It fits that, as long as you specify no seating.
Mhm.
and then if they did that, it's one parking space for every 50 square feet.
If you put in a seat, you need one seat.
No, if for takeout, it's one parking space for every 50 square feet.
Of the whole building,
Restaurant
or
takeout.
just the,
I mean, they're not gonna be able to make it work.
No,
no,
they're not gonna have enough parking.
Bob, you should be
Right.
correcting me.
Yeah.
If there's food prep on site, it's a restaurant. If they bring the stuff in already wrapped up for sale, like it's a candy bar and with a different thing.
Yeah,
on the
no, they're
wrap,
preparing it.
That's not a.
So-
There's a hand washing sink and they're doing food prep. That makes it a restaurant.
And Brad says up to 100 meals per day, takeout only approved. I don't know.
So a convenience store parking is one space per 100 plus the spaces for the gas nozzles. And then the takeout area, because I'm just gonna ask you this now, because I'm sure I'm gonna get the question.
Yeah, look up restaurant parking regulations with that.
Oh, you're right. It's one space per 50. All right, yep, you got me. Gotta get that back in there.
Intent, right?
I thought we gotta print them.
I'll be in your next package.
but it's 50.
So it's one space for
See it
every
on the 19th.
50 square feet plus the nozzles for the gas pumps. So it's gonna be nearly impossible. Even with a special exception, I don't think they could ever fit the parking.
No.
So unless it's a pre-made
I was just
sandwich.
gonna say pre-made. You
Well, I
got
guess,
it then.
what if they pre-make it there in the morning and leave it? I'm just gonna throw it out there. That's good. These are the questions I
Right.
expect that I'm gonna get. So if someone goes in the morning and makes 40 sandwiches and people can
Puts
grab
them in
and
a case
go.
and Pick them up.
Like you would anywhere else, like a
Cumberland
wall,
Farms does.
something like that, or Cumberland Farms.
What do you mean like Waltz? He makes some fresh for you.
He has a section there where he,
Oh, the hot,
Kind
you
of like
mean?
Hot
Mystic
ones,
Market, you
yeah.
can grab certain places, even though Mystic
Yeah.
Market falls into the
Yeah.
takeout.
yeah,
So I think it's unavoidable. It's a special exception. I think
Right.
it's gonna be hard for them.
yeah. Cause then we also have a question regarding the vacuum.
They agreed to take the vacuum down, so they weren't really familiar with it, but it's outside.
Okay.
So they're, well, these are different.
Different owners.
Oh, they're different ones.
Different owners,
Yeah.
yeah.
these
he
folks
sold.
bought it, they sold, these
Sold.
folks bought it, inherited the vacuum.
Oh, God.
And then they started this, so they went to CRAD, I think, and thought they were all set, and then the electrician kind of flagged it as,
Yeah.
what's going on here? I think you might have a zoning problem. And here we are, but they purchased all the equipment and set it.
Yes. Do we have a formal application yet?
Well, this is a certificate of zoning compliance, which,
So this is the application.
so
So it would be a
I mean,
special, a special exception.
at this point, from the guidance you provided, you're making the interpretation, it's a takeout restaurant, fits the qualifications of it, it's not retail any longer with the preparation of food. The dumpsters are
Yep.
definitely not enclosed. The issue of the vacuum
Mhm.
still remains outstanding, and it would be a special permit. And I think it would be challenging to add one space for every 50 square feet. I
Right.
guess, would that be, so with the one space for every 50 square feet, would that be just the prep area, or is that the
No,
whole store?
Back to Mr. Royston's. Let's put hash marks in the store and count how many square feet to meet the parking.
It would be the entire, but it would be the entire store, one space for 50 square feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would that exclude the cooler areas, like the soda coolers and that? Or the whole thing is one space plus the gas nozzles?
It's the,
It would,
it's the whole
it's the whole
thing.
thing. It would include the coolers.
Well, I'm just making
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Plus the
gas
gas
nozzle.
nozzles.
It's adding a new use.
Yeah.
That'd be 1,500 square feet.
Again,
There's no way they
if the
could-
stuff came in pre-packaged and they put it on the shelf in the refrigerator in the display case and it came in and it went out, that's one thing, but once you start making sandwiches, it becomes a Subway type restaurant.
Mhm.
Well, that's kind of where I was stuck.
Hopefully we clarified that for you.
All right, so you can be very
Okay.
specific in your minutes when we attach them.
Anything else? Comments? Okay, we'll move on to the last one, zoning regulations. Discuss the need to strengthen regulations to protect structures from cars driving into them at Old Saybrook Zoning Commission. I asked Chris to put this on because of recent activity in town where people have driven through or into the front of buildings. That I think for public safety, we have to take it into consideration, and we may want to amend our regulations to include protection such as bollards or types of bollards to eliminate that from happening. I still think that a 4-inch curve over a sidewalk, somebody can still drive through it if they accidentally hit the gas pedal instead of the brake pedal. It'll send them into the building. What the concern, or one of the things I think we need to take into consideration, and maybe we need to get ARB's input in this too, is the pole ballard setup. If we had them all of a sudden all over town, it may not provide the look, although it would provide the protection that would be best in the town of Old Saybrook. So I did a couple of simple, what other bollards are available? I did some Googling. And there's planters, so you'll pass this around, or there's other types of vertical ballards that might have more of an architectural design to it that could be an option, that you can pass around. But that's I think it needs to be addressed before someone is accidentally dismembered or killed, God forbid.
You thinking about all of Main Street too?
Well, that's part of what we gotta talk about. I mean, if it's vulnerable in one location, it'd be vulnerable in any location.
Yeah, where there's parking perpendicular to the front of the store, you really want to do something to stop cars from driving into the store. There's implications though, because if you, we'll have to look it up. It's in the parking regs or landscaping regs, that if there's not parking right in front of the store, then there has to be some kind of planters or some kind of a landscaping thing in front of the store instead of parking. So it's not just, yeah. If you put the bollard, that'll be enough and you'd be done. But if you're gonna do something else, then you end up with having to do landscaping.
Mhm.
So-
You got here, I got a landscape bollard.
Yeah, in essence.
The other place on Main Street, people.
These aren't bad though, these.
They go on the
The
sidewalk.
900 building wrapped the bollards with corrugated plastic signs for a while.
They knitted over them. Remember someone made
They- no,
knitted
they-
socks over
They
there?
did?
Yeah, yeah.
The knitting shop put,
Oh,
they knitted tops for the bollards.
On what building?
The 900 building.
That's across where the big
Kind of
campers are.
across from the diner.
Eye doctor,
oh.
just up from Johnny X.
Oh, yeah,
You have to have
like the
them.
horse.
Yeah, the horse
horse
thing,
thing.
yeah, with the horse.
So I think part of the issue though is with some of these, and it came up when we did the permitting for 745 Eatery. And I think it came up on Smoke on the Water, was that for the engineering standards, the planters didn't meet the specifications for the impact, so it just pushes the planter into the building, even though it slows it down.
Those particular planters that I found here at Granger have 4 anchor bolts that go down into the ground that are set in concrete and then bolted down to it. But I mean, still, it's a possibility that they could be moved with enough force. But it's just
The yellow ones at Saybrook Point are ugly,
Yeah,
but we
Those
know,
black
we know
ones are
why,
nice,
we know
though.
why they're there.
right.
Do you put them on an angled parking along Main Street? Because people park on the sidewalk.
Right.
That would stop that, and yet that would be hideous.
I know.
It was.
Yeah.
I know.
It's-
But
Well,
it's all
the-
vulnerable. There's nothing from the parking space to the sidewalk to the building, you know? It's right there.
It's happened.
Yeah.
At least twice.
What's the other one?
So I mean,
You gotta consider the.
so the
slope,
Main
too.
Street, they hit
Sure.
the Harbor
That's
Books
right.
when it was
For
over
a little
here.
while longer.
Somebody hit the Webster Bank, somebody drove through Nancy's, Rosemary and Sage.
Yep.
yeah.
And Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yep, Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber,
Yep.
the Dunkin' on Spencer Plain.
Yep.
But I mean, I think the thing is, it's, we have to be careful because there's the engineering component of it. So if we require it and something doesn't work, so I know Jeff remembers from the whole Saybrook Point incident, I think most of you are aware of, where
Mhm.
someone drove into
No.
the water.
The white
Pace
Yeah.
was
first
selectman.
Then what
I
happened
went
was
down.
they had a party
You have one
kind of
too, I
saying,
thought.
great, thanks first responders, and then everyone was served with a lawsuit because there wasn't adequate protection. So the thing is, I think the commission has to be kind of particular, because if we say put a planter and it doesn't meet the specifications, I mean, I could talk to Jeff a little bit
Some
about it
guidance from
too.
Jeff, maybe?
But the other issue with it is that it's problematic, just like they were talking about. So, you know, you think about Main Street when they're doing plowing, that, you know, they're going through, they have loaders moving snow, you know, I mean, they kind of go, it's one clean sweep now. And I'm saying safety, you know, isn't important, but that's the other thing is it's a huge interference, you know, depending on, and that's why most of the developers don't like it, but they also don't like those curb stops because
Right.
the curb stops, even when you
I know.
anchor them, they end up on the sidewalk.
Sidewalk. Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna think about and continue discussion. To think about and continue discussion that,
and next time we do reg change,
Where is it really needed and
yeah,
I don't think we can really pick where we want, where is it really needed or not. I think it's an overall safety issue.
okay. Committee representative and staff reports?
Okay, I did send you an email. We did get our fine federal transaction numbers. They kept under the 55 per hour. I did send you some peak times. There were no traffic jams or needs for parking attendants. There was no, I didn't receive one complaint. I don't know if any of you did.
Nope.
I mean, you could tell certain times it was busier. So far, it seems to be working.
Seems to be working.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, the Cuckoo's Nest would like to replace, and I didn't get addresses for you, I'm sorry. They have, they have their doors to the dining room and they have an airlock type of a,
Okay.
I don't have the dimensions, but my understanding is they want to replace that airlock with kind of a permanent building addition.
What is that gonna be?
So, when you go up the steps and they have like that airlock in the winter when you go in.
Between doors,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, so that's what they want to replace it with, a permanent
Addition?
addition versus
What's an addition?
adding over the airlock area. So instead of having
So
to
eliminate the airlock and make it
Make it permanent.
a permanent, so you yeah,
a permanent airlock or a permanent
Permanent.
addition to the
enter
restaurant
into the building,
to enter only into the building?
right? So people can go in and
So
Not
it
to
would be the
increase the-
same size?
that is my
Same.
understanding.
So go from temporary to a permanent. Or
Probably a good idea.
is it conforming currently?
I haven't seen that property here in 20-something years, so I'm assuming, I know that that was permitted as temporary, but I mean, overall, I don't know the coverage. I know they have a very large lot.
Mhm.
They're just looking, I mean, it'll meet the setbacks. They're just looking to replace what's there with permit. So would you,
So your question is, should they come in front of the commission or can you handle it
with
administratively?
a review from ARB?
I would say you could handle it administratively with review with ARB.
If it's truly just replacing what's there temporary.
No larger.
Yeah.
Right. If it's something more than that,
It's not additional seating.
Right.
It's just that.
Yep.
Doorway area.
Bob?
Hmm?
What comments about that? On the cuckoo's nest?
To handle it administratively,
Yes.
yeah, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we continued sign enforcement. There's a little more focus right now. We're kind of narrowing into the window signs. What else? So that's ongoing. The Wednesday, if you have nothing else to do, you have a continuing education
Oh, yeah.
opportunity, you can Zoom in or come in person, however. But so Matt is gonna kind of teach the fair housing.
Yeah.
And in here,
It's gonna be downstairs,
in
but,
the cafeteria?
but you can log in from the convenience of your living room
Right,
too, if you
right.
wanna do that. As long as you're there for the whole thing, I think it'll count.
Yeah.
Um,
And that covers the minimum requirement.
for the
By
fair
law.
housing,
for
right?
fair housing.
So I know different people have been tracking it different way. I just think it's easier just to
Yep.
take advantage of them, just so that you have it, you know, the continuing end on the fair housing. What else? September 4th, your meeting's gonna be on a Wednesday, which is also the night of the planning commission meeting. It looks like I'm gonna have a conflict because the planning commission has to start the public hearings for the natural hazard mitigation plan, because we have to get it completed by October. So my plan is, if it goes quickly or gets continued, I'll go between the meetings. So I just thought I'd kind of mention that. I kind of need to be there. We need to get this done for the October deadline. I'm gonna talk to Matt a little bit. I think we probably should talk about the sidewalk fee idea. I don't want to talk about the application tonight, but I think we need some clarification on it. Because we've had fees in lieu of open space, we've had different proposals that way. I think we just need to get a better understanding. Another thing that dawned on me tonight too is, do you think it would be helpful, because we have kind of a newer commission? How good are you feeling about traffic? I'm just saying, when Scott's up there talking, you have a traffic engineer, but when you start talking about trip counts per day and the Institute of Traffic Engineers and the different standards? I mean, would it be something that maybe we should do a little traffic refresher with our engineer?
Yeah, that would be great.
Sure.
It's up to you. I
No,
mean,
I think so.
It's a good idea.
I think, I mean, we're gonna see, I suspect we're gonna see a lot of activity in the west side of town, maybe just a good, half an hour or so, just to talk about what it means. Greg Del Rio, who's handling our traffic for Hardesty and Hanover, he just went through and did the updates for traffic, the new traffic, Institute of Traffic Engineer guidelines, and I know I probably, that acronym, I'm not as, there's too many of them, that their guidelines, and it was pretty interesting, some of the stuff with, adding sidewalks and bike lanes and different colors, and I'm like, I never knew that. Now I drive around, I'm like, that's why. So, there's some new standards, but maybe we could have them do a little kind of traffic 101 and,
Yeah, because if you look at what they were looking at, it'll take in, and then I know they put in the letter to tell them, take a look at, but the summer months weren't there. So here in Old Saybrook,
So-
nobody's counting the summer months.
so the thing is, we can't talk about the application, but this may be an opportunity in
Right.
general.
Right.
Talking about things, I mean, I know some of you are aware that, there's some discussion about the Westbrook outlet malls. There's some
Yeah.
discussion that they may try to push through, whether it's through the off-ramp of 95 or through a different property into Spencer Plain. We're gonna have Max's Place, Whole Foods, so maybe it's just a good time for a little
Yeah.
traffic refresher to kind of say, even though we have a traffic
Yeah.
consultant, just so you get a little bit of a better understanding. I think Bob's been the expert for years. He's the only one who read. You've been the traffic expert because you read the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, traffic can be very confusing and the numbers can be manipulated in many different
Any way
ways.
you want, whatever agenda you want to paint, you can paint.
It's been my experience, Saybrook and reading about other towns as well. The general population is very concerned about traffic. And the commission that denies an application based mostly on traffic will be overruled. The traffic that we have here is not the worst traffic in the world, and therefore it's okay. That's how the courts, there's always someplace worse. And if you're not worse than the worst in the world, then yours isn't bad enough to deny.
Right.
So all the talk about traffic, it's a lot of wasted time because you can't make a decision based on traffic. You can only, like Max's Place, put in new traffic lights because they realized they had to do something. We used to have, we used to have 14 traffic lights in town. Now we have more because of Max's Place. And that's just kind of intersections. Those are like the one at Henny Penny, there's like 8 traffic lights there at that thing over all those traffic.
Yeah.
lights. But traffic is weird because there's a movement to calm traffic. Highway engineers want maximum speed for maximum cars through a point. And that's why Mariners Way has a big problem. It's like 40 miles an hour. And they want all the cars to go through really fast. But as soon as you bring in destination curb cuts and stuff, it cuts down on how many cars get through there. The state's not gonna wanna lower the speed limit. It should be no more than 35. It should be probably 30 out there. Gonna have a long battle with the state. Is this, is this the only high school in the state that doesn't have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in front of it? It's 35 along the high school. So traffic is,
No flashing yellow lights, no nothing.
and if you put in bike lanes and reduce the traffic lane width, you get slower moving cars. But the fire department will tell you, with the mirrors out, their trucks are 11 feet wide, so.
Yeah.
You can't win.
So, the application continued, there's a few things chugging your way, nothing big. I thought you were gonna have a application for a gateway special exception, but the ZBA got appealed for their variances that they granted by the Gateway Commission.
ZBA got,
Appealed by the Gateway Commission for granting variances in the gateway. So I was expecting that special exception application, but they were served last week.
Surprise, surprise.
So I can send you a copy if it's of interest.
Yeah.
So that one kind of went off, so I think I don't know, I don't want to jinx us,
Yeah,
but
no. So right now, we're looking at continuation of Spencer Plain Road
Mhm.
for our next meeting.
yes, in September
Bring
fourth,
us your drawings.
nothing.
Right.
So
September 4th currently doesn't have anything.
that unless
That you know
something
of, it comes in the next couple of weeks, right? Yeah. So in the event that nothing comes in, that would help your availability of planning,
planning.
if zoning.
I'll be here, so.
No,
so
but
it
if
depends.
there was nothing that
And then
night for
everybody
zoning.
from this commission can go to the
Oh, sure.
hazard mitigation public hearing.
We still gotta come out.
Yeah.
Foreshore, there was a little bit of a delay, so.
Yep.
That's being rescheduled till September, so the foreshore public outreach, and I have to double check. Because we have so many dates now. That is gonna be.
You have a date now for that then?
Not a-
So it is gonna be, it canceled, it got postponed till Tuesday, September 4th, or 24th, I'm sorry. The 24th at 6:30 at the middle school.
Okay.
What else? Oh, another thing, I don't know if I filled you in on, it kind of went on Joe's point. That ARB brought out as, and I probably emailed it to you, there's a whole new list of trees and shrubs.
You did?
On the invasive plant list, so, we've been working, Lynette and Zoe from Tyke Consulting, on putting together a tree guide, which actually has like for us with pictures. So when we end up in the situation that something's invasive and we go, what do we put there? It'll say, this is a salt tolerant tree
Mhm.
that will live, or a tree that'll live next to a parking lot. Kathy Connolly's been heavily involved. She's been providing expertise. We've gotten a lot of input and a lot of stuff. So hopefully it'll just be something to help you, in the 11th hour when they say, don't plant that tree. And then we go, what are we looking for? And I think that's about it, unless you have questions for me.
No. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. John Henry, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.